Welcome back to the Law Precision, the second installment of the WristClocks series. If you haven't heard the first book yet, you'll find the full playlist linked below in the description. For those returning, let's continue. Now, precision waits for no one. Let's go. Chapter 3 and 4 are waiting. Chapter 3. Past the hour. Some clocks are never wound. Some hands stay bloodless. But the hour always arrives. The second body waited behind the Ashbrook Public Library, tucked in the shadows of a stone alcove where patrons returned books after hours. Morning light hadn't reached it yet. The alley glowed in a dull blue haze, the kind of cold that felt intentional, like the day itself hadn't wanted to look too closely. The only real color came from the wrist. Detective Elijah Brandt crouched beside the body, his coat soaking damp from the concrete. He didn't care. He was too focused on the pose. This one was arranged, deliberate. Legs crossed neatly at the ankle, hands folded in the lap, head bowed just slightly, serene, almost reverent, like he'd fallen asleep in prayer, except for the carving. A clock. Not scratched, not branded, etched directly, delicately, with surgical certainty. 8:15. The skin around it was pale, smooth, no swelling, no bruising, no resistance. No fight, Brandt thought. Different time, different pose. Behind him, Marcus Claire stepped closer. Boots silent on wet pavement. But the same message, he said. Brandt glanced back. There's a message. There's always a message, even when you don't know who it's for. Brandt returned his gaze to the body, jaw tight. What kind of killer doesn't want to be caught, instead wants to be understood? He had seen rage, desperation, panic. This wasn't that. This was controlled, like someone keeping time. "5 years earlier, Port Briar, Maryland. The hallway still smelled like fire long after the flames were out. Smoke clung to the walls like a memory that refused to leave. She was 22, almost 23. Carl Holden, third floor apartment, found curled near the stairwell, burned alive before she ever reached the exit. They had a suspect, ex-boyfriend, history of threats, a timeline that fits. Brett had watched him during questioning. The way he blinked, too slowly, the flat voice, too calm. He's not the guy, Elijah had said. As soon as the door closed, he got motive, means, opportunity, someone had countered. Yeah, Brett had replied, and none of it adds up. But they had pushed it forward, built a case. The jury found him guilty. Port Briar breathed easier. And yet, Brandt still remembered the scorch marks near the banister, the missing phone. the flashpoint that never turned up. Sometimes you solve a case, other times you just cleared it, and sometimes you leave the wrong seconds untouched. Back then, Marcus had told him, justice isn't clean, it just needs to be done. Brant had responded. Still wasn't sure he agreed. Ashbrook present. The white sheet covered the body now, but Brant could still see the posture in his mind, peaceful, respectful even, like the killer thought this was a favor. The gurney wheels clacked rhythmically over the concrete. Tick, 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 echoing through the alley like a ghost of a clock. You're thinking Ellis Danner, Marcus asked quietly. Some carving, Brant said, but this feels different, measured. She was chaos, Marcus muttered, messy, loud. This is method, Brant said, like someone correcting something. Marcus frowned. Correcting what? Brant didn't answer, but the back of his mind, a phrase surfaced, like some forgotten interview. Broken gear. Across town, a man hunched over a yellow ledger, scribbling notes in tight, careful script. Subject 2. 8:15, acceptable posture. The pacing will hold if the rhythm is maintained. He flexed his wrist, bare. Watches were unnecessary now. They lived in the pulse, time, and the steps between events, and the silence between seconds. He didn't need reminders. Time obeyed those who understood it. In the margin, he drew tiny gear, shaded dark. Broken gears slowed the whole machine. And the law, it didn't require spectacle, only precision. Just 1 second, I need some water. Dying of thirst here. Okay. Keep going. Chapter 4. Signal drift. When enough people hear the ticking, someone always starts counting out loud. Ashbrook had been quiet for years. Quiet enough that the worst violence came from property disputes or bar fights that ended with more bruises than paperwork. But now the hush felt off. Not calm, not compressed. Like the town was holding its breath before a scream. Detective Marcus LeClaire leaned back from the whiteboard. Thumb pressed hard to the bridge of his nose. 2 victims, 2 clocks, same incision, same eerie stillness, different times, which meant a different intent and maybe escalation. People are starting to talk, he muttered. Across the office, Brant didn't look up from the coroner's report. People always talk. Not like this. Reddit threads, podcast, crime talk spewing and chewing on this already. That YouTube guy, you remember him from the Danners case? Brant glanced up, annoyed. The one who named his show Under the Veil and then wore a ski mask in his living room. That's the one. He's back, posting twice a day. Brant snorted. He also thought Ellis Danner was 3 people in a trench coat. Sure, but even broken clocks are right twice a day, Marcus said. He tapped the board. He's not wrong about the carving. It's surgical, intentional. The room settled into stillness. Overhead, lights buzzed faintly. Outside, wind knifed through narrow streets. Grant finally said, "We need another body before we start drawing conclusions." Marcus turned slowly. "You're waiting for proof. But what if the proof already is being buried under hashtags and misinformation?" Brant met his eyes but said nothing. Marcus kept going. "We're already behind whatever this is. It's leaking into people's heads, into their feeds. You think this will end with a third victim?" "I think it's just an opening act." Brant folded the report, walked to the whiteboard, but he didn't argue. It happened at 8:15 a.m. In a quiet second-grade classroom. A substitute teacher knelt beside a girl who was sketching silently at her desk. The girl had filled her entire page, line after line, with clocks. Yawning. Each one is different. Each one is missing the minute hand. Some with numbers, some with just slashes. None of them marked the same. When the teacher gently asked what it meant, the girl replied without blinking, "I dreamt them." No one told the detectives. Not yet. A YouTube video, over 1.3 million views, played on loop in a dorm room 3 states away. This isn't random. It's architecture. Clean, mathematical. This isn't Danner. This is someone building something. Something timed. The voice dipped into a hush. This isn't killing. This is construction. Teenagers swiped through TikTok in the backseat of her parents' SUV. The video showed a man in a pale blue office, smiling with forced calm. Let me be clear. These are isolated incidents. There's no cult. There's no message. This is just fear doing what fear does, turning shadows into symbols. The girl didn't follow him. She just watched again, staring at the image overlay at the end. A clock, drawn in chalk, on the sidewalk, filmed outside a church in Ashbrook. It had no minute hand, and it hadn't been there the night before. He didn't speak, he didn't post, but he listened. To the panic, to the logic, to the spreading myth that was no longer his to control. At least not alone. He watched a shaky live stream of a woman breaking down. My cousin had the mark. Funeral home found it, preparing the body. No second hand, just the hour. She stared at the screen, eyes hollow. What does it mean? He wrote in his notebook. Hour only, removed early, incomplete. And beneath it, correctable. He closed the laptop. No joy, no thrill, only calibration. The long refinement of a system most would never recognize until it activated. The law didn't demand spectacle, only obedience, only precision. Marcus stood by the precinct copy machine, scrolling headlines on his phone. Former Danner seen defaced in vandalism. Memorial removed after graphic clock graffiti. Law of precision trends on Crime Talk. He walked back into the bullpen, screen held out like evidence. "Brant," he said, "we're not ahead of this, we're chasing it." Brant glanced at the screen, eyes narrowing like a wave. Marcus nodded grimly. Or a clock tower ringing. People don't look until the hour strikes. Brant followed, folded his arms. "Then we better listen before the next bell." The site was still blank, still sterile. No title, no username, just a white screen with one line of text. "They'll call it madness, but it's always been math." And now, in the bottom right corner, a countdown, blinking slowly. 42, 13, 09. Unstoppable. Below it, a second line appeared, as if answering the silence. "You all have been late before." The ticker ticked. The timer ticked down and down, waiting.